Hi, I'm John the Methodist. Welcome back to my channel where we discuss spiritual growth and life as a disciple of Jesus Christ in the Methodist tradition. Whether you grew up in church or you are new to Christianity, I hope that this channel will help you grow in your faith. If you want to stay up to date on all of the tools and resources I'm providing for you to do that, you can go ahead and subscribe below. Today we are talking about seminary, theological school, or divinity school. Specifically, why I chose Duke Divinity and a little bit about my first year. So let's get into it. So maybe you've been asking yourself if you should go to seminary or pursue graduate degrees for ministry or work in a faith-based nonprofit. Maybe you're pursuing an ordination track in the United Methodist Church and you know you need to go to seminary. Today I want to talk about my experience at Duke Divinity School, my first year, and maybe answer some of those questions that you have about what it's like and what to expect. I'm hoping to provide these reviews and question answering videos for some of the other United Methodist seminaries, and so I'll be reaching out to my friends to hopefully provide those soon, so look out for those. So to add a little bit of context, I am a certified candidate for ministry in the United Methodist Church, and I'm pursuing ordination as an elder, so I want to pastor local churches, and to do that you have to have a 3-year degree called a Master of Divinity degree from one of the 13 approved United Methodist seminaries. And so I am currently at Duke Divinity School, which is one of those 13 approved schools, and one of the ways that you can grow in your faith is to attend graduate school. So if you're trying to become a pastor or a chaplain or somebody who works in faith-based nonprofit, this degree is a good option to do that. So to talk a little bit first about the classes, for your first year you take a lot of core classes, and so these are requirements that are standard classes that all of the students at Duke Divinity School have to take. In my cohort there's about 150 students, and all of us for those core classes meet in one classroom that is like a big lecture hall like you would see at an undergraduate university. And so that's not just Masters of Divinity students, but also those pursuing Masters in Theological Studies and other certificate programs at the school as well. There are other classes, of course, that you take in your first year that have smaller class size numbers, but those core classes are what your first year is mostly about. And the core classes are broken up into those 150 lecture classes with the main professor who lectures for about an hour and a half, and then you also have what's called a preceptorial session, which is with a preceptor, which is like a TA. It's usually students who are pursuing graduate work at the school who break you down into smaller groups of between 10 and 20, and you meet at a separate time for about an hour to discuss the course material at length. So a seminary class is just like a normal class on a college campus, especially the lecture portion of it. So you'll be very familiar with the format, the way that professors lecture, the tools that they use, and the whole kind of format of the course, using an online portal and assigning different assignments through that portal, assigning readings, and using that to communicate back and forth. What is different in seminary is that most of the professors see their vocation or their calling to be to educate as their form of ministry, and so they pray before class. They not just lecture about the material, but try to explain why it's important for ministry and relate it to theological thinking, or thinking about our faith and what we think about God and the Christian religion. So in the fall, I took Old Testament, which is a core class, church history, which was a core class, and then a preaching class for student pastors. And in the spring, then I took all core classes, and that was the second part of Old Testament, the second part of church history, and then New Testament. The assignments range from a lot of weekly reading. That's what you're mostly going to do in seminary, is read. So there's a lot of weekly reading, and then most of the preceptor sessions will have a sort of weekly reflection in the form of a paper that you turn in that's based off the reading to make sure that you're comprehending as you go. Then there will be, in core classes, a lot of times one or two papers or bigger assignments, and then a midterm and a final. So what did my week look like? In the fall, I pretty much had one or two things to do on campus every day. And that was between the three classes. I spent like between 1 and 3 hour chunks on campus, and then I would go home and work on homework and study. In the spring, that looked a little different. I had really long full days, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then a short day on Thursday, and no classes on Friday. So it all just depends on what they offer and when, but you'll go to your classes, and then you'll have the precept session, and that will be how your days and weeks are organized. Just as a note, Duke Divinity School is still very residential, which means that most of the students, if not all, attend classes on campus in person, and so you have to be on campus to be at Duke. And the schedule of the weeks doesn't really work well for if you were to commute from far away. I know at other seminaries they have a schedule that's sort of modified so that people can commute in for a couple days and then go home for a weekend. Duke has classes Monday through Friday on campus that you're expected to be at. Just on another note as well, I am a student pastor, so I am on a 4-year paradigm rather than the normal 3-year paradigm of your course schedule to complete the Master of Divinity degree. And what this means is I take 3 classes instead of 4, and it'll take me 4 years instead of 3. But that allows me to work part-time as a pastor here in Durham. And my 4th class essentially is sermon prep and pastoring for my church. But the people that I met in my program so far in my cohort who are on the 3-year paradigm, who took 4 classes in their first year, may have taken classes like a biblical language like Greek or Hebrew. And then also there was sort of some survey courses in what ordained ministry is like. There are pastoral care classes, and then pretty much any elective that you could imagine. But like I said, the first year is very heavily concerned with those core classes. Also, as part of the Divinity School, something that's maybe different than undergraduate or non-faith-based programs is that we have a requirement to do spiritual formation in our first year. So in both semesters, we are required to meet once a week with a mentor who is typically faculty or somebody from the community who's volunteered to be a mentor for about a 10 to 15 person group that meets once a week. And there you talk about basically how it is with your soul. You check in with your spiritual formation along with your academic formation. You learn about different spiritual disciplines. And it's just a way to, in my experience, take that 150 person cohort and offer a small group to connect with right away. Another thing to note is that because of some stay-at-home orders, my second semester was cut short in March for in-person meetings, which has been interesting. We've switched to virtual classes and Zoom classes. So my experience in my spring semester was probably a little bit different than you will experience, but it will be interesting to see, and I'll check back in with how going to some virtual classes out of necessity changes the way that we do classes. But I know that for most people, the feedback that I've seen is they prefer in-person, so I'm imagining when we can go back to in-person classes, we will. But this has changed, not the schedule, but all of our lectures went to online, And then our classes for the preceptor sessions met on Zoom, and we did have some revisions to our syllabi and course requirements. So I wanted to provide some details and answer some of the questions that you can answer by coming to campus, but that you wouldn't necessarily be able to get if you had never been to the campus before. So first and foremost, Duke is located in Durham, North Carolina, which is in the triangle between Chapel Hill, Durham, and Raleigh, North Carolina. And it's a very beautiful area. Durham is an interesting city. There's a lot going on, but it's not a big city. Duke is a beautiful school. It's on a beautiful campus, and if you want to see some pictures, go follow my Instagram at John the Methodist. I've posted some different pictures, but it's a very beautiful campus, and the Divinity School is right in the middle of the main campus. So just sort of some logistics. The school has a parking garage that is the recommended parking area for graduate and professional students, and this is about a 15-minute walk every day to and from the Divinity School. There's also a bus that goes back and forth, but that's something I didn't know before, and I found it interesting that, I couldn't park any closer than 15 minutes. So you have to factor that into your commute. But when you do walk to class from that garage, you walk by the law school and the business school and the football stadium and the baseball field. So you do feel like you're on a college campus, which is cool if that's what you're looking for. It also is, it's the Divinity School, like I said, is right in the middle of the main quad. It's right next to the big iconic Duke Chapel, and so that is very convenient because you're right in the middle of it. But also, other than freshmen who have their own campus at Duke, you are with undergrads and other professional schools, and you're not as secluded as you would be from undergrad students. In the Divinity School, we have our own library, our own cafe, and our own chapel, as well as our own bookstore. So everything you need is right there. They offer chapel services several times a week, which is nice. It's a good way to remind yourself why you're there and to grow in your faith while you're there. All of the books that you could need are there as well. And the cafe is really delicious. On Wednesdays, they have buffalo chicken mac and cheese. So it's really nice. The library has all the study space that you could need and all of the weird, nerdy theological books that you could imagine. The rest of the Divinity School is feels like an older building that was sectioned together as they needed more space, which does feel old sometimes. And some of the classrooms you think, is this just really a broom closet that they put desks in? But again, it's got character, and it's got a unique older feel to it. The rest of the Duke campus, on the other hand, is very, very modern and upgraded and beautiful in terms of the amenities. You have everything that you could want. You're right next to the big 2 libraries on campus that have tons of resources and study rooms and all of those things. You're right by the bookstore that has Duke gear and merchandise and other books that you could want. You're right near the wellness center and the gym, so you can go, and they have an on-campus pharmacy and doctor's office, as well as a clinic for a counselor or psychiatrist on campus. And then the gym's nice too. It's not the biggest gym, but it's got everything you want. It's got basketball courts, a racquetball court, a rock climbing gym, different exercise machines. That's right there too, which is a cool amenity for students as well. You're also right next to the food court that has some delicious food options. It's not like a cafeteria that I experienced at Florida State. This is like sushi and Indian food and like a Chipotle style bowl restaurant, and so it has delicious food. I am partial to the $5 dumpling special and the $10 poke bowls that you can get. but that is right across the quad area as well. And there's also some other restaurants and coffee shops to get things that you need, but everything's right there. It's very accessible once you're in the physical building. So overall, my experience has been interesting. It has been, I would say, positive, and I'm glad that I chose Duke, although I don't have an experience at other schools. But when I visited Duke, I felt like it was the right decision, and I still feel that way now. What I mean by interesting is that I keep going back to the phrase that seminary or theological education is what you make it. It's what you put into it. There's the faculty and administration is extremely supportive and helpful and knowledgeable, and you also have to do your part on your end, which is to take advantage of the resources and reach out, be proactive, and also make your experience what you want it to be. I noticed right away that at Duke, and I'm not sure how this is at other schools, the general demographic skews younger. So I think that the majority of my classmates are right out of undergrad, so between 22 to 24. I'm a little bit older than that, and I've been out of school for a while. So for me, I wasn't looking necessarily to for this to be an extension of undergrad, but I think that if you did want it to be like that, you could spend all your time on campus, near campus, doing things, going to sporting events like, of course, Duke basketball games. And so you can really get the college experience again if you want to. I'm married, and I also am a student pastor, so I have not chosen to spend all of my time on campus. I've had to spend a fair amount of time working, and also I've prioritized being home when I can with my wife. And so for me, it hasn't necessarily felt like an extension of undergrad. It has felt almost like, at some points, like an extended workshop almost, or conference. And it also has felt at some points like like it's a job that I go to, and I've got, kind of like my coworker friends there. But it is what you make it. Again, there is a lot of reading and work. So if you haven't been in school for a while, it's an adjustment back into that life. You have to learn how to prioritize. You have to learn how to study. You have to learn what's important. And I think there's also an aspect of it where you have to be okay with not being able to complete everything to total perfection. So it does get bogged down in the academia of it all. It can feel like you're just taking in information from a fire hose. And I remember at the end of last fall, I realized I just needed time to process everything I had learned. I also think it's important to have a goal in mind. For me, I'm very committed to my track as an elder in the United Methodist Church. So I'm trying to put everything that I do through that lens. How does this apply to ministry in real life? How does it apply to my parish that I'm working at now? How does it apply to serving in the United Methodist Church in the future? And I think that's important to have those frameworks that you're going into it with, or else you could get lost in all of the huge amount of reading and books and courses you could take on a variety of subjects. I have said several times that there's nothing romantic about seminary. It's expensive, and there's resources, but you have to do the work. It is hard work for the classes. It's rigorous, and so it's not circle time and Sunday school. It's hard work, and you're expected to read and to be able to talk about what you've read and to process that information at a high speed. But at the same time, you'll be surprised by something you hear from a professor that just reminds you why you're there. And for most of you, I'm assuming that's to be prepared to work in ministry, to be prepared to work in God's church. So that's why I'm happy with my decision, because it has felt like I've been preparing for that. And I'm happy with what I have encountered so far. I am going to link below Duke's website. Right now, you might not be able to schedule a visit, but I would love to answer questions. So again, follow me on my Instagram at John the Methodist and send me a DM. I would love to answer questions. I would love to hop on a call. I would love to take some more pictures of campus for you if that's what you need. But I do want this to be a community, and so you can send me an email or write in the comments what questions you have about seminary at Duke. But I really want to be a resource for you as you make your decision for seminary. So thanks for watching, and if this video has provided you with any value, please like and subscribe so you can stay up to date. I'm trying to provide resources for you to grow in your faith and for you to have tools to develop as a Christian and as a person of a follower of Jesus Christ in the Methodist tradition. So thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned for those other seminary reviews. That's it for this episode. Go in peace and remember that you are loved.